The company's values are grounded in the principles of integrity and reliability. For you, this means ethical, responsible lending from a family business you can trust. Whether you're in the market for your first home, refinancing, renovating, or buying an investment property, they have access to hundreds of loans from a host of Australia's leading lenders. Guzman Finance will do the hard work for you to make sure you get the right loan for your circumstances. They manage the process from start to finish. Contact Andreas on 0425 826 055 or visit their website.
Good evening and a very, very warm welcome to you wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us here on a new look football out west show. It's a whole new day, a whole new set of colours, and unfortunately the same old technical problems that we've been having, unfortunately, and it just seems to be going worse and worse, and it's giving us the absolute irrits. But nonetheless, we are back on deck for another year. It's episode 47 tonight. And joining me, as he always does, week in, week out, Craig Filer. Craig, it's been a hell of a start to season 3. Not for all the good things. We already got the gremlins working their wonders with some of our volumes and noise and what you're not. But also with things happening all around us. First of all, mate, on that note, very warm welcome to you. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. Yes, good to be back. It seems as though it's been forever that we haven't been on. I suppose it's end of October when we had our last show. So it's been a nice break, but I think everybody wants to start talking about football, and everybody's looking forward to this weekend. Oh no, we're not.
No, we're not.
No.
Before we get to all the negative stuff, and boy, are there bloody lots to vent, lots to get off our chest. Have a look at these logos. Have a look at these new look logos, the new banners there. We've got new colours. We've got a new night, a new day, I should say. A lot of positive things happening here at the Football Out West show. And folks, before we go any further, major thank you to our major sponsor this year. Once again, the wonderful folk at the George Cross Football Club and the Georgies on Vista there in Fraser Rise. Big shout out to Mark Sultana, Lisa Jurich, and the rest of the crew at George Cross. They really are backing us again this year. They are going to be the major sponsor of season 3, the entire season. But also tonight we've got another episode sponsor. We really got to thank them as well. Craig, who's our episode sponsor for tonight?
So episode sponsor for tonight, as he was last year, he was a sponsor for us, and we're very grateful to everybody that comes on and sponsors, whether it's small, medium, or large. We can't do the show without you. So big thank you to everybody at George's. But for the show today, we've got Andreas Guzman from Guzman Finance, your local. What's the word I'm looking for, Tonci?
Mortgage broker.
Mortgage broker. That's the one I was looking for. It is going horribly wrong already.
If you're looking to resize, upsize, downsize, or if you're looking to fleeing Melbourne and which apparently the big number of people are doing down my neck of the woods, and you're looking for a mortgage, Andreas Guzman is the man to see. 0425 826 055. Now, we're getting reports that our first, unfortunately, we weren't able to get the sound happening with some of our ads right at the start. And speaking of sound, gosh, that intro is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. If you couldn't hear it, we're going to have to play it again a little bit later on in the show, Craig.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's very professionally done, and we've tried to make a bit of a difference this year in the logo and how we do things. First show, there's always going to be some technical issues, but hopefully we'll get that right over the next week or so, and we'll be able to bring you a far better show than we did last season.
Having said that, it was a very, very good show. We had some amazing guests last year. We had some clubs absolutely supporting us, and right through until the football quiz, which was absolutely brilliant. But speaking of guests and coming on the show, gosh, have we got an absolute doozy of a guest coming tonight. Craig, mate, what a way to start 2021. Tell us about tonight's guest.
Yeah, well, and it is a great guest to kick it off. We all in the football fraternity have all been listening to the news and talking about the want for a second division and the need for a second division here in Australia, and it's certainly gathered plenty of momentum since our original, because we like to see ourselves as pioneers, don't we, Tonci? That we brought the issue to Australian football, and unfortunately for us, or fortunately for us, the pros got on the end of it, and we're very lucky and thankful that we've got the chairman of the AAFC, Nick Galatas, who is going to come on this evening and talk to us about everything to do with the second division, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that's going to come on a little later on in the show, in the second half of our program. So we've got this year a different concept, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, the introduction, the welcome. We're going to talk about, the weather and what you're not. And then we're going to have the news desk as we did last year. Then we've got a new thing coming up this year, Craig, where we're going to debate an issue, something that's relevant to us. I'm calling it the Friday Night Fight Club, because I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of biffo. There's going to be some, hot under the collar type of reactions from people involved, maybe even from our own listeners as well. But that's going to come on a little later on the show. And we've got a good one tonight to start things off. And it's about everything that's kind of, happened even today. And that's the COVID pandemic and its effect on clubs. Tell us more about our debate for tonight.
Yeah, look, it's come about off the back of a number of reports, social media posts over the last couple of weeks, where there seems to be a real shortage of players now in Victoria, or quality players, if excuse the pun. I've seen in the last week at least 9 clubs of an NPL under-19s looking for players, which is a real problem for us in Victoria. Now, I know that Football Victoria had some ideas around potentially having 13s, 14s, 15s, 16s, missing the 17s and going straight into 19s. But I think that was poo-pooed by a lot of the clubs. So they went with 14s, 15s, 16s, 17s, 19s and 21s, which I believe is too many. And there's not enough kids and clubs to go around. Prime example of that is 2 clubs that I can mention in NPL that couldn't raise sides in the junior boys NPL, so actually went to a club and took the under 15s and under 16s team lock, stock and barrel, so they could play in the junior NPL boys. So it's a real problem. So I'd like to hear from the public of how COVID has affected your club. Has it affected your club in terms of the quality of players, and what we need to do to rectify it?
Well, that discussion is going to come on a little bit later on, but in the meantime, we're going to hop away very, very quickly to the news desk, and that's coming up very, very shortly. So don't go away, folks.
Caroline Springs George Cross Football Club, we're looking to grow our family. Memberships are now available. You can choose to be a social member or a full member. Some of the benefits for social members includes a discount on food and drinks at George's on Vista, as well as access to member events. Be a member of our Members Night Thursday nights at George's on Vista for the chance to win some great prizes. Or become a full member, where you get free entry to all home games, discounts on food and drinks at George's on Vista, free function room hire, access to our members events, and so much more. For more information on how to join as a member, check out our website www.georgecrossfc.com or send an email to info@georgesonvista.com.au. Come join us at City Vista Pavilion and Sportsfield. Become a part of the Georges family.
Welcome back to the Football Out West show. Apologies once again. We seem to be having all sorts of gremlins popping into the with anything that we're playing as far as external, for example, adverts and anything like that. We just seem to be having some sort of issues and not sure what it is. But hopefully people can hear us as we're talking. So we're going to push ahead and continue with all that. But Craig, to get things started, we talked about last week the NPL Juniors, they kicked off. We'll probably go a little bit later on in the program about that, but we will touch on it. Round one results saw some mixed bag of results for a lot of clubs. That we saw a few score blowouts, I guess to be expected early in the piece. But also this weekend was supposed to be a double header, round 2 and round 3, and unfortunately, that's all been gone totally down the wayside. So. If we have a quick look maybe at some of the results, I guess, let's have a look at, first of all, maybe if we bring up the under 14 results. So let's go through there. So there's a couple of the scores there. Did you want to go through some of those scores?
Yeah, can do. I'll go through the full scores, John, just as we need to waste a little bit of time. So Junior NPL West, Avondale lost 2-1 at home to Green Gully. Caroline Springs George Cross lost 3-0 at home to St Albans Saints. Melbourne Knights lost at home 6-0 to North Geelong. Ballarat lost at home 4-3 for Werribee City. Then there was a turn of fortunes with a home side win in Geelong Soccer Club beating Altona Magic 3-1. And then Bendigo City losing 10-0 at home to Brimbank Stallions in the under-14s.
Now, two results that really stick out there. Obviously, the 10-0 shellacking that Bendigo City copped. But I guess the regional clubs have struggled in recent years to, one, put together a quality squad, but also for them to, I think, gel is a word. But that is a big result. Do we know much about Brimbank Stallions? I mean, this last year was their first year in NPL Juniors. This, I guess, is their, if you like, second year. But that's a pretty commanding performance by the Stallions.
Yeah, look, it's always going to be a struggle for the regional teams. You know, Bendigo and Ballarat, they haven't got a massive pool of players to take from. They obviously do try and keep in touch with everybody down here in Geelong, and they give it a go year in, year out. But unfortunately, like I said, it just comes down to, you know, exactly what I spoke about earlier on. It's the pool of players that's available to them.
Yeah.
So, you know, fair play to them for trying to put squads out every year. And I think it's right that they're involved in the competition. But obviously, lack of talent is certainly the issue there in Bendigo. Ballarat, not so. You know, came away with a 4-3 loss, and you know, I'm sure the boys up there are continuing to develop their young footballers, and hopefully we'll see Ballarat do very well this year.
The irony of the situation, I guess, when we're talking about regional clubs, your club, the club that you're coaching at, North Geelong Warriors, have a look at that 6-0 drubbing over the Melbourne Knights. Now, what happened there? I mean,
look, this goes back.
Sorry,
Tom. This goes back to what I said earlier on. Unfortunately, from what I can understand, Melbourne Knights couldn't raise an under 14s boys team for whatever reason, which I find amazing. So they went to a local community club and effectively took the coach and all the players straight to their club. And of course, a community club to an NPL club is very different. And that's the reason there, I believe, as why it was a 6-0 drubbing. I apologise for the dog in the background, if you can hear that. But 6-0 was a bit of a drubbing, but you know, a long way to go for the young Knights boys, and a good experience for them. You know, for playing community football straight into NPL, it's a bit of a life lesson very early on against a very, very good North Geelong side. Let me tell you.
It is, and there we go. That's the under 15 division now. The scores were a lot closer there. The biggest win or biggest margin, I guess, there, St Albans Saints defeating Caroline Springs George Cross 3-0, but all the other games were fairly close. That's the under 15s. We then move over to the under 16s. Now, to explain this one, there's a couple of buys in this division. So Werribee City and Brimbank Stallions both had buys. So it's a 10-team league, so the under-16s. That must mean that not everyone is fielding a team. Do you know much about this division, Craig?
No, I don't, and it's really concerning that there's a bye again this weekend when you've got two teams that could potentially play each other. It doesn't make any sense at all to me. So no idea, but there's obviously a club in there that hasn't fulfilled, and of course that should be a fine into that club, and then my belief is that they have to reapply for their status next season. So we'll watch and see where that one goes.
Now, if anyone knows, maybe it's Bendigo City. That doesn't look like they've got a team there, and it doesn't look like Ballarat have got a team. So maybe they're the two teams that couldn't field teams. Now, I do believe that the juniors that have got an exemption. Am I correct in saying that if you're a regional team and you're struggling to field a team in a certain age group, then you're not required to if you can't? Is that? Am I hearing that?
I'm not sure, Tonci. I'm not sure. You would imagine so, because the two teams in question are regional teams. So I would imagine there's some kind of leniency towards that. Yeah.
Let's throw it out to the punters out there. If anyone out there in Facebook land or YouTube land watching this live on our Facebook channel or on our YouTube channel, I was going to say YouTube channel. That could be a new one just for kids, but a YouTube channel. Let us know if that's the reasoning that why in the under-16 competition. By the way, we're just looking at the West. We're not interested in the North, the South, the East, the Central, or whatever else. We're the West. We're Football Out West show, so we're just looking at the West. Let's quickly move on to the under-17s, Craig. Once again, the games were fairly even. There were a couple of 4-1 results there. Altona Magic over Geelong. And I believe Altona Magic is a very strong team indeed. And once again, Brimbank Stallions had a big win over Bendigo City, 4-1. But apart from that, most of the other games were fairly even. So that is good to see, at least in the Western Division, that it's fairly competitive in most of these divisions.
Yeah, look, and I think that under-17s is going to be a good league this year. Certainly Altona Magic. I would say probably Altona Magic and Green Gully will be the teams, but having looked at the Green Gully result, perhaps not. They would have been my picks for at the start of the year. Yeah. The Melbourne Knights under-17s players of most of those have gone up to play under-19s this year, so they've been very strong for a number of years and would have won the league at a canter last year, but they've gone up to play 19, so the Knights 17s are perhaps not as strong as they have been in recent years. But look, it looks like a pretty good season for everybody, and nice close game. So we'll see how that one pans out.
Sounds good. Now there could be a positive to the the whole COVID situation, which we will discuss later on in our Friday night Fight Club debate. But one of those things could be exactly what you just said. And because of the COVID situation, a lot of younger players now are being pushed up a few age groups and they're being given an opportunity to play at a high level. If that is the case, it might not be such a bad idea. But Craig, we're moving along now to the rest of the news. The draft fixtures came out during the week. This is the State League fixtures. We'll go through some of them. Hopefully it'll still be on track and we won't have too many changes. But in State League 1, so they were talking about the men's competition, we got 3 absolute humdingers to open up the season, but none so bigger than George Cross versus Sydenham Park, Saturday, 20th March at Caroline Springs at Fraser Rise at 5 p.m. It's going to be a night match.
And that's a cracker. I believe George Cross are playing all their home games at 5 p.m. on a Saturday. Obviously to make use of the Georges on Vista there establishment. That's a cracker to start it off, isn't it? They'll be up there with two of the favourites for that league as a shoe-in, I would have thought. Along with the other game for me is the other stand-up there is the Brimbank Stallions Essendon Royals game on the same day. So some fantastic games kicking off there. George Cross versus Sydenham Park, Banyule City versus Yarraville Glory, Altona City versus Corio.
That's going to be an interesting one. The Altona City Corio, newly promoted Corio. They'll find the going tough, is my prediction. But Santino Mamoni, who's one of our regular listeners, and he's on there now. He's very, very active in the comment section. He's a Corio man through and through. And Santino would love to know how your team is going to go this year. But a shout out to Corio Soccer Club, the poor buggers. This weekend they were supposed to host which would have been, I think it's the 40th Jubilee.
47th, I think, or 46th.
It's been going, I think, since 1981. So what does that make it? 40 years, is that right?
Okay.
Yeah. The Geelong Community Cup, previously known as the Geelong Advertiser Cup, clubs such as Werribee City and Hoppers Crossing in the past have participated in this, but it was going to be held as a weekend-long tournament, a slightly revised format this year at Hume Reserve. It was going to be a big fundraiser for the Green and Whites, but unfortunately,
it's unbelievable, isn't it?
No can do.
Unbelievable. But look, just on that, as hard as it is for Corio, it would have been a good revenue. They are trying to get it back on next Saturday, I believe, and I think they've sent a message out to all the clubs involved in that to see whether it's possible that they can play it on the 20th and 21st, which is next weekend.
Yeah, no, it would be good. Now, speaking of Hoppers Crossing, which we mentioned just a little bit earlier, have a look at this in State League 2. They come up against Westgate in their first night match at Grange Reserve, and that will be on Saturday, the 20th of March at 7 p.m. My Lord, does it get any better, assuming that we're going to have this season go ahead? But, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, all around the western suburbs, there's going to be some absolute historic games being played. So that's it for the State League fixtures, Craig. It's going to be, if it does get off, it's going to be a bloody good season, I tell you what.
Yeah, look, there's some big games right throughout that, out through the State League, and they're on the Football Federation site if you want to have a closer look.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, what else is happening in news? We're going to go very, very quickly. Geez, we can talk about all of these things. There's so much happening. Let's talk about the FFA Cup. So this is one of the first things that has happened. The FFA Cup. Let's see. So the FFA Cup, the qualifying round was drawn this week. So we obviously we've had a couple of games happen here. Let's see if we can bring some of them up on show, and maybe Craig, we can go through some of these ones when they come up on show. I'm almost got them. Here we go, and there we go. So the first one there, obviously we've got. There we go. So we got, I guess the teams that are in the western suburbs or the west. Ballarat taking on Glen Waverley. Surfside Waves is a Geelong club. They're from Ocean Grove. They'll be making their debut in State League 5 this year. So they're taking on Endeavour Hills. Who else we got there? Macedon Blues United. I guess they're part of the west. They're taking on Albert Park Soccer Club. And then in the second row there, which clubs are there from the western suburbs, Craig?
Well, we got Hampton Park United Spars, which is a mouthful, playing Maribyrnong Greens.
It is, isn't it?
Everybody missed out on a road trip to Mildura, so it's a Mildura Shepparton. They'll be pleased with that one, I'm sure. Bacchus Marsh making the trip down south to Falcons 2000.
Great to see Bacchus Marsh. They are, I believe, a Ballarat League club. Yep.
Ballarat and District League Club, yeah. Deakin University from State League 5 down at Old Trinity Grammarians. Moonee Valley Knights making a short trip up to Toller Marine. Melton Phoenix. I suppose that's a bit of a local derby against Wyndham FC.
Yeah.
They're the fixtures for round one of the qualifying round of the FFA Cup.
And there's some more of the other games as well. We've got Balmoral at home to Elphington. West Point taking on Bunyip District. Now, where's Bunyip District? Is that out in? I think they're out in Bendigo.
Like it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Bunyip District. Does anyone know where Bunyip District is? I think if our old mate Steve Curtin is listening, he'd be able to tell us. He's an old Bendigo boy. I've got a feeling it's up that way. Who else we've got? We've got Spring Gully United. No, Spring Gully United are from Bendigo. Now they're taking on Barwon. So Dale Harris's men, they had a dream run last year in the FFA Cup. I think they won 5 or 6 games on the trot. Looked like they were going to have an absolutely fantastic year. And then COVID hit. Mount Martha, they're at home to East Kew, a beautiful part of the world. We've got the Keilor Wolves away to Old Melburnians. Maidstone United at home to Baronia. And then Rosebud will be playing host to Lara United, a club not so far from me. But,
and we've also missed off local club Balmoral. We were playing Alfreton FC, number 17 in the draw.
I did mention them.
I'm very sorry, Tonci. Yeah, sorry,
I'm pretty sure I did, yeah.
Santa Moon has just come up and said that he thinks it's in Ballarat, and then somebody else has come up and said it's. So it was Stato. Stato was straight in there. Steve Curtin. It's Gippsland.
Yeah, yep.
So the long trip to Gippsland, that's a hell of a trip, isn't it?
Oh gosh, that it is. Yeah, that's for sure. Now, I guess what we want to also have a look at now one of the big news items that happened over the last few weeks, and we'll bring this up on screen, is now that's some footage of Futsal Oz, a futsal game played last year between Fitzroy and Carlton. Craig, big news coming out of FFV, or I still call it FV, Football Victoria headquarters, is that it's almost like a bit of a back to the future, that futsal is now going to officially come under the umbrella of the state governing body, which is great news. And they're promising to unite, I guess, all the various futsal factions, if you like, for want of a better word, around Victoria. This will have some major, I guess, ramifications, in the sense that it's going to allow, things like representative things and representative pathways and elite pathways, but also the creation of a semi-professional futsal league. Thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, look, I think it's an absolute fantastic idea and a fantastic thing to happen. Futsal, for those that have not seen it, is very fast. It's a very fast form of football, very technical, great for young kids, especially through the summer months when there isn't any football. I believe a lot of kids should be playing futsal, certainly indoors. I think it's great, and it's being spearheaded by Anthony Grimmer from Football Federation, who's the new head of futsal in Victoria, and I know he's very keen on creating a national competition based down here in Victoria, Tonci, which will be fantastic.
Now, Craig, you have actually reached out to Anthony, and he has promised that he will come on to explain a little bit more about this. But we're hopefully going to have a big sponsor in coming shows as well, who's very much involved with futsal as well. So looking forward to that. But mate, you actually are an accredited futsal coach. I don't know which level, but tell us, the listeners and the viewers, the benefits of futsal for the development of outdoor players.
Oh, look, it's just a very, like I said just now, it's a very quick format of football, but it allows you to concentrate. And the ball's a lot smaller, the ball's a lot heavier, so you don't get the bounce. So it's all about your footwork, quick feet, moving the ball really quickly, using parts of the body or the parts of the foot that you probably don't normally use in a traditional football game. So most of the passes are controlled with the sole of your foot rather than the side of your foot.
Yeah.
There's only 4 players in the game, including the keeper plus the keeper. So it's a very, very fast game, and it's really all about technical ability. You see some of the Brazilian footballers that have played it. They've been brought up on it through the years, and it's no coincidence that they're the most technical players in the world. So Spain's very good at it, but Australia's always been up there as a sort of pioneer in futsal. But it seems to have lost its way a little bit. But it's really good to see that it's making a big comeback, and the state government is looking to pump some money into to benefit everybody from that. And the development of football is what we speak about here all the time, Tonci. And if those young kids can get into futsal very, very early, and I know there's been a tournament throughout the summer all around the country, it's going to make our younger players better.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I couldn't agree with you more. I think I've been involved with futsal many, many years ago when back in the day, I suppose there even was a national league. I wasn't involved with that. I was too young for that. I'm not that old. But I have in recent years, more so because of my own child, been involved in it. And I've just seen firsthand how much, we talk about the close ball control, the skills, the fast thinking, having to really, and is it Michael Long says control and touch needs to be spot on. Yeah. You need good technical skills. Absolutely. And that's, I've seen that improve in him. opposed to some of the other kids that didn't play it as well. And I'm seeing that a lot of the kids just around the traps that are just getting that starting to think very, very quickly. Now, we're talking under 9, under 10, under 11 kids. And I think it's at that stage where you start to really kind of move away from the rest of the pack, not so much in your skills and ability. I think it's in your thinking as well. But then you throw in, a good dose of futsal, which absolutely helps with the development of that technical side of things. And it really, really is a massive advantage for these kids. That's for sure. So really exciting times on the horizon as far as that is concerned. So we're really, really looking forward to that. But mate, I think it's almost halfway or half an hour past the start of the opening whistle. That means it's time for the Friday Night Fight Club. So I'll get you to organise yourself and get yourself ready, Craig, because when we get back, it's going to be all about the Friday Night Fight Night. Well, that is going to be very, very exciting, folks.
Okay, guys. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you, as Tonci can just pop that back up on the screen for us. I want to have a bit of a debate tonight, guys, and it's your show. It's not our show. It's your show. I want you to be part of what we're trying to do. So, in the comments section, we're having some problems with the phone lines. The phone lines are working, but they're not working. So, the debate is: to what extent has COVID pandemic affected the number of quality players signed up for the coming season at your club? As I said earlier on, I've seen a number of clubs in the NPL under 19s looking for players. I think there's nine clubs in the 3 divisions that are looking for players at under 19s, which is a huge problem. Why is that? Is it because of the league structure that the Football Federation have now put in place at NPL? But also at local state league football. I've seen a number of posts, and I've had coaches ring me up saying, I'm looking for a left back, I'm looking for a goalkeeper, I'm looking for a striker. What is the problem? And apart from obviously the fact that COVID's hit and international players are no longer allowed to come here, is that a good or a bad thing for the football, for the future of football here in Australia, Tom?
Well, I'm going to go on the affirmative side. Someone's got to. Doesn't mean I necessarily agree with it, but someone's got to go on the affirmative side. Look, as long as we get a season underway, as long as we see some football, this can only be a good thing. And I'll say, look at the A-League. Let's look at the A-League, for example. We haven't got some of those expensive has-beens from overseas. We've had to force a lot of our younger players up, okay, to make the numbers, just to be able to field the side, whatever the case. And guess what? Some of those young players have bloody done well. Maybe they didn't get a go at their, Valentino Yule is a good example. Couldn't get a gig at Western United. Well, look at him now, absolutely blitzing it up at Newcastle. What's young fella Qual from Shepparton? He's doing the same at Central Coast. And then even look at some of the young players at our own club, at Western United. Milanovic coming off the bench quite a few times this year. Tomislav Uskok has become a regular footballer, vice captain now. Vice captain now. And look, you know what? A year ago, he probably would have struggled to make a regular appearance. So in some ways, because of the COVID pandemic, it's actually meant a lot of young players are stepping up. And that's good. Now, down at junior level, and we talked about the NPL juniors just before, and also there's a vacuum's got to be created somewhere. So if at under 17 level, those kids are now being moved up to under 19 or under 21 level, as is the case with a lot of these clubs, we're finding that a lot of younger players, so 14, 15-year-olds, are now being pushed up to play in the under 16, under 17 thing. Now, we won't know if they're ready for that until they're given an opportunity. And guess what? They're being given an opportunity. So I think in many ways it is a positive. But Craig, you seem to think that it's a negative. Tell us why.
No, I don't think it's a negative as such, Tom. So I just think
we can't both be on the affirmative side.
Yeah, look, I just think that there's a reason why clubs are now struggling. I've seen a number of games throughout the pre-season as it is, and one club in particular has lost 8 players out of their starting lineup. and they're now struggling to get hold of players, and that's at a decent level. So we know that the football that Australia over the last number of years has relied on, as Michael Long said, backpackers and international players coming to the country. Now they're not allowed. So this is an opportunity for football now to really get on the front foot with this junior development program. It has to. I do believe that there's too many leagues, because there's not enough quality players to play in those leagues. So that's a big issue in itself.
At which level? At which club? Or which level? Sorry.
Certainly at NPL level. If let's talk about that at the moment. And football, we don't want to just talk about NPL and the A League. We want to talk about state league football and girls football and community football and all of that. But the NPL football is supposed to be a pathway for the better players to progress.
Yeah.
How can it be for better players progressing if they're losing 13-0? Who's winning?
Mm-hmm.
Who's winning? Who's going to gain from that? Because I can tell you, having watched North Geelong under-16s last week win 13-0 at Melbourne Knights, I can tell you that Josip Skoko, the head coach, what can he do? He can't tell the players anything. He can't tell them to keep the ball any longer than they did. So, for me, it comes down to, this is a fantastic opportunity. Again, we spoke about this last year, of really homing in on player development.
Mm-hmm.
International players are probably not going to be here for the next 12 months, 18 months before the borders are really open. So is it a good opportunity? And I still believe Football Federation have made a mistake in the number of teams they've allowed in the NPL this year. They shouldn't have done the under-16s. They should have bypassed that, and those teams should have gone into under-19s and developed those younger players earlier, given them more game time earlier at a higher level.
Yeah.
And then that would have made the whole 13s would have come up, because now 13s are playing 9v9. They shouldn't be playing 9v9 and 13 now. They should be starting to think about, progressive football, big pitch, 14.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of work to do. Michael Long, Melbourne Victory under 14s, losing 8-0 to Whittlesea. Melbourne Victory.
Oh, Melbourne Victory is struggling, both seniors and juniors, it seems to me, this year. Yeah.
So it tells me that there's a real lack of quality. Now, why is that? Why is it? Is it coaching?
Well, do you think it's, getting back to our debate topic, do you think it is because of COVID? I mean, we're talking there, and I'll just move that overlay away. To what extent has the COVID pandemic affected the number of quality players signed up for the upcoming season at your club? So is COVID the reason? Well, we'd like to hear from people out there what they think.
Yeah, there's a few messages in the comments. Is it because of COVID? I think, look, COVID's going to have a massive impact. There's some very, very good international players that I've seen in this country. If I use St Albans Saints as an example, they had some fantastic young players from abroad. They can't play for them anymore.
Yeah.
Where are those players now going to step up into NPL? So it is a big problem. The bigger question is, what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to rectify the problem that is now? Because, as I said, I don't believe there will be international players coming into Australia for the next 18 months. So, is this a real good opportunity for the Football Federation now to turn around and say, well, let's get rid of a couple of leagues. We don't need them. It's just a money. I can't say it's a money maker, because that's wrong. But it's wrong. It's probably not wrong. In my head, it seems that it's just a cash cow.
Yep.
Okay. Rather than putting the development of the young footballers at the forefront, which is the most important bit, not about how much coffers are going into the pot.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing that I have noticed over the last 12 months, when large parts of Melbourne were in lockdown, or when Melbourne was in lockdown, Geelong was a little bit luckier. We still managed to get somewhat of a season happening, but not a long season. But putting all that aside, what impressed me about some clubs, but disappointed me about the vast majority, is the vast majority of clubs, to me, just went into hibernation. Whereas some clubs actually use this time to develop strategic plans for their clubs, to work on and successfully get, funding for, infrastructure at their grounds. But also, a lot of clubs use this as an opportunity now to start planning or to start, I guess, brainstorming ways how they could improve their development side of things. And kudos to those clubs that did do that. Not many did, but this is the perfect opportunity. And Craig, I recall us last year going on and saying, this is the time when we need to start thinking post-COVID, what can we do? What can we possibly do to improve football in this country? And we had some great guests talk about a number of things. And we're going to have a fantastic guest talking later on about that pathway that we talk about, because at the moment, and he had Nick had a really fantastic thing where he said, when the A-League first started, there was 7 Australian clubs, 7 and 1 New Zealand club. Okay, in the last 15 years, the A-League has developed, but there's still not enough opportunity for kids to jump from that NPL semi-professionalism to jump up to some next tier competition, because look, there's only so many places available for these talented juniors in the A-League. And we're seeing with Melbourne Victory, look, throw them into the fire, they're struggling. Some of these youngsters are struggling. Kudos to some of those that are doing really well. But junior players, young players, they take a while before they can attain some form of consistency, correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. But I just think, if we look at a comment here from Omar Bradford, and it'd be really interesting to find out your reasons, Omar, but MPL should be scrapped for juniors. For what reason? We need the best players playing together to improve.
I think Omar's onto something, and I'd love to hear more about why he says that. But there's been a lot of talk where people in some of these clubs, lower league clubs, if you want to call them that, are actually saying the best players aren't actually playing NPL because it's too expensive. And so if Omar's right in what he's saying, if you scrap the NPL system, NPL junior system right up until, say, the under 16, and then you launch into your NPL 17s, 19s, 21s, etc., maybe we're going back to the old days where we used to have Super League, and it didn't matter who you were or what you were. If over the course of a few years, your team is so good that it gets promoted to what is the Super League, it'll play against the best in the state. And cost will not be an inhibitive factor. I'd like to hear more from Omar. So Omar, tell us a little bit more about what you're saying. Ahmed Idris, who is involved at North Geelong Warriors, he's the under 21, under 19 coach there with yourself, Craig. He says COVID ain't the problem. There are still issues with FV and FA technical and strategy. Can't sweep that under the carpet. Would like to hear more of what you're talking about there, Ahmed. That sounds really interesting. And then Arthur Kiosis, I hope I've said that right. He says lots of kids up to 14, 15 from 16 players drop off. That seems to be a fair point, doesn't it, Craig? Yeah,
it does. And even higher than that, when you talk about 17s to 19s age group, which in particular is the area that I'm talking about, you've got school. They're in final year of schooling, so there's a lot of things that are going on. I've got a young lad that's playing to me that lives in Geelong. He travels to Melbourne every day, gets up at 4 o'clock, goes to school, does his school in the football school in Maribyrnong, and then travels back to Geelong, then comes training 3 nights a week. He's 15 years old. We've also got to think about those kids. They're going to burn out very, very quickly. So, we've got to take all of this into consideration. And I just believe that this, your comment about, playing, maybe not having those younger age groups at MPL might be the answer. Because if I had my way again, and I've said this, and I'll go on record of saying it again, if I had my way again with my lad in the earlier days, there's absolutely no chance he would have played at a Premier club at 8 years old. And I've spoken to ex-professionals, who've played in Champions League and played for their country in this country, and their kids are very talented, but they're not letting them go to these professional clubs at 14, 15 years old. Why? Because they're not going to develop any better there than they are with their local club. So look, there's a point to be had there, Tonci. Is it that we start at 16, 17, 19 and really start to push those kids? So I think this debate could go on and on and on. I think it's a fantastic debate.
Yeah.
I think it's one that we can certainly go back to in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully try and get the phone lines working and get some of these listeners phoning in with their views. And there's a number of great comments coming through. So let's park this and come back to it in the next week or so, I think.
Absolutely. Before we do go, let's give a couple of the pundits out there who are putting some comments. Let's give them a little bit of airtime. Joey G says Super League produced good players in the Geelong area, and I dare say the Socceroos that came from North Geelong, the Skokos, the Horvats, and then players even like Didlica, who played for Croatia. They came out of that whole system. Maxi Santic says, this is an interesting comment, the A-League was originally created to be that stepping stone for young players developing at local levels to be able to move into the more elite leagues in Europe, not a super top-up in Saudi Arabia. That's a good point. And something that I guess that over the last few months, Football Australia came out with a report and about the A-League compared to a lot of the clubs, leagues in Europe. And I think the average age up until last year of players in the A-League was something like 31 or 32 or something. Don't quote me on that. But it was quite, you could see it was really the complete opposite of what Maxi Santic just had to say. But, yep, Craig, we'll leave it at that. So, yep, COVID has had its bad effects. It's had its positive effects. But at the end of the day, I think if you're involved with the club, you just got to take the knocks on the chin, and you just got to move forward and try and really push the positives. And I think there are a lot of positives within our own sport, within our own football ecosystem here in Victoria. We've got too much difficulties as it is. Let's concentrate on the positives, and that's certainly something that I'd like to see happen in 2021.
Yeah, great topic. The comments are still coming in. I think let's park this for today. We've got a fantastic guest waiting in the background for us, and let's get back to this over the next couple of weeks, Tonci, and revisit it, I think.
Sounds good, mate. And it is half time. Indeed, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and when we do come back on, we're going to have a very, very special guest joining us a little later on.
Are you opening a new business or want to improve your current exposure to drive more customers? Then talk to our team at Principal Signs. We have over 30 years' experience of helping businesses like yours stand out from the crowd. We can design, manufacture and install a range of signs, either permanent or temporary, at an affordable price without compromising on quality. A signage supplier with a reliable reputation. You can trust the team at Principal Signs to ensure that you make the best decision for your business and your budget. We are passionate about giving you a standout experience in customer service and ensure that we exceed expectations every time. For more information, find us on Facebook or check out our testimonials and work examples on www.principalsigns.com.au or call Ray on 0406 728873 for a quote. Mention this ad for a 10% discount off your first order.
Hands for Hire is a free platform that connects people looking for more work in their downtime, and also businesses who want to list jobs on a casual basis. Are you finding that you have spare time and could actually be earning extra money? Or do you need a hand on a casual basis and don't want to employ a full-time worker? Hands for Hire is the app to help you fill that time yourself without paying huge fees to recruiting agents or labour hire companies. Signing up is completely free, without any obligation.
Guzman Finance, Point Cook's professional and trusted mortgage broker. Using the latest technology powered by Australian Finance Group, their lender panel has over 30 institutions, including the major banks. Andreas, the director at Guzman Finance, is an ethical and experienced mortgage broker and has helped hundreds of customers navigate the competitive and ever-changing mortgage landscape to find the right loan for them. The company's values are grounded in the principles of integrity and reliability. For you, this means ethical, responsible lending from a family business you can trust. Whether you're in the market for your first home, refinancing, renovating, or buying an investment property, they have access to hundreds of loans from a host of Australia's leading lenders. Guzman Finance will do the hard work for you to make sure you get the right loan for your circumstances. They manage the process from start to finish. Contact Andreas on 0425 826 055 or visit their website at guzmanfinance.smartonline.com.au.
Welcome back to the Football Out West show. It is episode 47, believe it or not. Since we first started way back, whenever it was. It was just a long time ago, that's for sure. Geez, I tell you what, it just what's going on with the noise, I guess. There's no noise, no gremlins, they're just really starting to I don't know what it is, but they're providing a little bit of problems with us. Craig, you're back. We haven't got our guest yet. Not yet.
No, he's joined me and said he's there. Tonci, I've sent you over a message for you to have a look at, but he said he's there and he's waiting, but nothing coming through.
No, we definitely can't see him on our end. So, Nick, if you are tuning in, try and call us back, or try once more to get back on, and we'll try and get you on. But Craig, now, have we heard the latest? What's happening with the A-League? What's that going to go?
Well, the game for Western United
ideas?
Sydney has definitely been called off. I saw that earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure Desperate Dan and his cronies at the Vic Council will be allowing the tennis to go ahead. No doubt. That's definitely going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that. I'll tell you what.
And it's a shame that because the A-League has started off really well. If you look at who'd have thought? Yeah, we all joke aside last year, didn't we, about the teams and the standard. And look at Central Coast Mariners. Look at Central Coast Mariners this year. They've just turned the corner, and we still have my favourite player in the world playing up front. But they seem to be doing very well.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, we haven't got video of footage of or video connection with Nick, but he's on the screen. Well, we have got him on the line. Nick Galatas, are you there?
Tonci, I am. Do you want me to try and get on again? I don't know why I'm not on. I'm linked, but you can't seem to link me here for some reason. So I'm watching you, but I'm not quite sure why it's not happening.
Can we all hear Nick pretty well?
I can hear him perfect.
Okay, Nick. Well, you're on here. So what we'll do, we'll try and we'll just have to pop you up there like that. There we go. Nick. Well, first of all, yeah. Now, well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your time, and it's been an absolute pleasure. It is an absolute pleasure having you on the show for our very first show of 2021. But mate, the last 2 years. Has it been 2 years since you've been involved with the Association of Australian Football Clubs? It's been a very eventful time, but in the last week or 2 weeks, there's been quite a fair bit of talk about not just I guess the fact that we've got him. We might have him. He's gonna come on. We've got him.
Is that better, boys?
There we go.
Look at that. Mate, that's great to have you on board. How are you, mate? How's things?
I'm very well, thanks. Good to be on. So I heard what you were saying there, so you can continue from there. So I heard you the intro.
Yep.
So, yep. Let's
talk about it. James Johnson came out in the press about a week ago, and he talked about the fact that it's a case of now not do we need a national second division? It's when. And I guess the big thing now is between AAFC and the FA is the difference in how it should be executed.
Yep.
James Johnson is proposing a model maybe where the clubs would play in their NPL divisions during the winter, I suppose, and once that finishes, it would go off and into a sort of an expanded National Premier League's championship, isn't it? Like a Champions League format.
Yeah, Tonci,
Tell us more about what he's suggesting.
Yeah, before we go, I mean, what James has suggested, you've heard, we've heard, and in fairness to James, it's a developing situation. It's not that James has put up, or the FFA has put up a particular model. He's just suggesting, for example, and I think from what he said to Simon Hill the other day, that philosophically he said he favours what a national division of the type that we've proposed.
Yep.
But pragmatically, I think he said, using his word, he wants to make sure that what we're proposing can work. And he thought that perhaps where he's at the moment, pragmatically, a competition of the type where you have an NPL followed by a Champions League style, I think is the best way to put it, follow-up, second phase of the season, he sees presently as pragmatically easier to get up. I think that's how he put it.
Look, he actually said, however, Johnson believes that a more pragmatic model is a two-phase system where clubs will play out the local NPL season with the best sides to then progress into a national-based Champions League group stage competition at the back end of the year.
Yep. And I think when you listen to the whole thing there, Craig, he went on. It was a long discussion he had with Simon, and he was talking about how it was easier to start that one. I think he said he went on to say, which obviously the simpler you make something, the easier it is to start. I mean, that goes without saying, I think. So the question is, what's the best version of the second division? That's for us. And we've, I think, put front and centre in our model that we want to achieve the best possible. So from our perspective, we've canvassed our clubs, done a lot of work, as you would have seen in our report. And we say a model of the type that we've proposed is pragmatic, is doable. But of course, we're in the working stage. And as James said, 2021 is about working. And we propose to take part in that and demonstrate why it is that we say the model that we've proposed is in fact not only philosophically the right way to go, as James has said, in terms of his preference, but actually pragmatically, it works. And not only it works well, and it works better than any other model. So that work's still to be done, and we look forward to doing it.
So how do you see how does the AAFC see the league set up, how do you guys see the league setting up? What would your ideal league look like, Nick?
Well, it's a developing situation. So again, from the report, we want to get to a situation where you've got maybe 16 teams playing home and away nationally over a normal season, 30 type round league, but we might not start there. It depends what the expression of interest that we would propose. And again, that's what we would propose. Football Australia would need to agree and introduce it. But discussing our model now, if it were to be adopted, what we would start with is perhaps potentially a smaller model to start, perhaps 12 teams, depending. We might have 16 viable candidates. We may not. We don't know yet. We'll see. But we're looking at a developing model, guys, so that it would start at one point and develop to another. So that's what we see as a viable start, moving towards a far stronger and better second division as we progress. Yeah.
So in terms of obviously the clubs, I would imagine, and we all know because we've all seen the documents, there's been a number of clubs that have highlighted their expression of interest to join the league. Where does that sit at the moment? I think, if I remember right, there's something around 18, 20 clubs still within the group or the discussion groups. Is it more?
No, it's many more. Craig, we've got 32 contributing clubs to our what we call our partner group, and there's many other clubs. Of course, it's not exclusive of them. They're the clubs that are contributing and have contributed so far to the report. But there's many other clubs around the country that potentially would apply. We're not excluding. From our perspective, no one is excluded. Any club or group of clubs can join. We're looking for the best possible, as I said before, the best possible second division. But we have 32 directly interested participants in the report that we've prepared.
As you can see on the footage, we've got some highlights from last year's New South Wales NPL Grand Final between two clubs that certainly would be vying for that. Sydney United, who have produced so many Socceroos over the years, and Rockdale City Suns. And you mean this type of action in these type of stadia with these types of crowd. Now, remember, this game was absolutely, pelting down with rain. But it must be a mouth-watering prospect to think that these type of games could be played week in, week out, right around the country, and getting crowds that potentially would be just as good as the A-League. But probably the thing that excites me the most is that then there's this avenue for talented young individuals to play. I mean, one of the kids there, I think Michael Rue is his name, I think, for Sydney United, came on and now he's playing for Macarthur FC. That's a great example. That must be something that's driving you guys, Nick, as well.
Don't you 100%? But also, you have to remember that's the starting point. So that will be the starting phase. That's what you just put up there is the product of the NPL. Now, can you imagine where that could go if you take the best of and you develop it from there? So that would be absolute base starting point, what you saw. We would have a far better and stronger league than that is where we want to go. So we don't want to just take that, replicate it and leave it there. We want to take that, use it as our launch and go from there. That's the point. So that you'd have the best of, and you'd have lots of these players playing together, best against best, developing and putting themselves in the shop window for A-League and above. That's part of it. That's critical.
So going back to the clubs, Nick, for me, how is the AAFC going to finalise their clubs? What is going to be the criteria involved in clubs being involved in the first or the inaugural league of the B League, second division, championship, whatever we want to call it?
So, Craig, as I never tire of saying, we won't be doing that. It doesn't fall to us to be doing that. We're not saying we're doing it. This is a Football Australia project. As James said, it's not about if anymore, it's about how and when. Our job, we're contributing to that discussion. What we're saying is the clubs, the NPL clubs currently, is where these the second division clubs will come from. We're the representative body. We're doing some work. We're trying to assist. So we're not wanting to go to discussions with Football Australia, as James has pointed out in the 11 principles about having discussions with member federations, AAFC, interested stakeholders, and we're not going to turn up to such a discussion with a bit of guesswork and a bit of wish list. We've done a lot of work to demonstrate what the second division can look like according to our clubs. So that's where we are. It won't be us who select them, and it won't be us who start this competition. We are looking to have the competition run by Football Australia. That would be how we see it. That's how I believe Football Australia sees it. In that sense, we're working hand in hand with them. And in fairness to James, he's had a lot on his plate. I mean, he's only been in the job for about a year and a bit, I think. And this thing called COVID that was just hit us in Melbourne again today, in lockdown, has had a bit to do with his first year. He's had to get through the unbundling. He's won this little thing called the World Cup. Working on the domestic transfer system. He's done a bit of work. We've got to give him a bit of credit. So,
absolutely.
This is on the agenda.
Yeah.
We appreciate where he's coming from. He's said philosophically where he stands personally, and he's expressed some very reasonably held reservations as a CEO of a major organisation responsible for the game. And we, as a stakeholder, are there to show and demonstrate that, or we can meet those reservations and demonstrate that this league is the best way to go.
Absolutely, Nick. At the top of the show, we talked about how important it was over the COVID lockdown period last year for clubs to do strategic planning and the like. And we've said it last year as well. And I guess one of the things that James Johnson and Football Australia have done is not only plan, but they've actually realised certain things. They've unbundled the A-League and the clubs. There's been serious discussion about the national second division. And one thing talking to you about that as well is the fact that earlier today is you made a really good point where you said, look, the National Soccer League finished up in 2003. So a lot of those clubs have progressed and I guess developed. And this second division today of 2021 or 2022 wouldn't necessarily be the NSL of 2003, because that would have almost been 20 years apart.
Absolutely.
Tell us more about what you meant by that as well.
Yeah, this is not, we had a bit of a discussion there, Tonci, about a number of things. It was meant to be me getting my technical abilities up and going.
And we succeeded in the end.
that almost didn't work, but here we are. Look, it's a big discussion, this second division, and I think people come at it from different angles, and everyone has their own view. And some think it's the NSL comeback, and others think it's all worried about promotion and relegation to the A-League, and others are wondering about this and that, and some worry about, is it going to be other clubs going to have be financially strong enough, and others worry that they're going to be financially too weak, and there's all manner of issues. Now, you can ask 100 people, you've got 100 different angles. All I was saying there was that in terms of part of the, there are many clubs that hark back to the NSL, others that weren't around then, and people compare it to a time when, and they freeze it in time. The 2003, it ended. That league ended. Many of those clubs continue. Other clubs have come along, have grown, have become very large, and many more may come. Who knows where the next big club will come from? It may, we've got massive urban centres growing in Australia, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, elsewhere, outer suburban areas, new communities coming in. Every area has to be free to introduce their own club, which might be the next major big thing in Australia. Now, it's not about only the establishment, be it A-League, be it former large clubs, be it NPL teams. So from our perspective, all I was saying there was that that was a moment that's frozen in time. Who knows where many of those clubs would be today had it continued? We'll never know, and it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what we've got. That's our starting point, and we want to grow it from there. We don't want to restrict those clubs. We want to let them. They're dying to show what they can do.
Yeah, and guys, in the comments to all the listeners that listen, if you have a question for Nick, I've just popped it up there. Please don't be shy. He's given us his Friday evenings when he should be down the pub for the last time for a week.
That's right.
So if you've got any questions for him, just pop them in the comments question. We'll get them, try and get them answered for you. Maxi Santos has done that, and he said there, Nick, please allow the estimated clubs with multi-generational supporters, history, traditions, and opportunity to grow the current game today like they did in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. I think you just said that we can't go back to the 80s and 90s, unfortunately. The game's changed.
That's right.
However, that's where effectively we want Australia to get back to the, I remember I was talking to you earlier on, and I remember watching Australian football when there's 10, 15,000 watching MSL games. We don't get that at A-League clubs now. So something's missing.
Yep. And also, Craig, importantly, I think that those people were going to facilities that aren't as good as today. So, in fairness, you probably wouldn't have got many women going back in those days because the stadiums weren't up to accommodate them. There are not many children. Whereas those 15,000 now would bring families along and friends. You have to have a multiplier effect. That might mean 30 today. So, that was blokes only, to be fair, back in those days. Not only, but mostly because of the nature of the stadium. So we've got a lot of passionate people who would come back into the game and also support the A-League as well. It's not just about the second division. They would be part of the game. One of the big points that James is trying to bring in with the 11 principles is unity and unification, and we love that. That's what we're about too.
Absolutely. Let's touch on the topic. It's always a hot topic of finance. How to finance these clubs. And look, one thing we mentioned back in the day, back in the NSL days, gate receipts was a big thing, and clubs generally did live off, gate proceeds, down here in Melbourne Knights, South Melbourne Derby, it attract 10,000 fans. Of those, who knows, 5, 6, 8, 10,000 were paying customers. And it was probably 3, 4, 5 times the average gate of a normal thing. So for both clubs, it would mean such a big thing budget-wise. Now, how do we, like the clubs have been, told to expect sort of a budget of about between $1.5 and $2 million. If the PFA had their way earlier last year, they would have wanted $3.5 million or something like that. How in this day and age are clubs able to achieve that financial target?
Okay, well, firstly, Tonci, remember, and as we say in our report, many the clubs that are formed our partner group, they already spend money. They already put certain teams out. You just put up some footage of 2 of the top clubs in New South Wales last year. It didn't happen for free. They were already spending money. So there's your starting base. So the question is, how much more do they need to raise? We're not starting from scratch. These are not new entities. These are existing clubs with existing fan bases, existing facilities, existing sponsors. So you've got a starting base. From there, you've got to leverage them. And the work that we've done with them is to say, well, okay, if you were in the national second division and you were one of 12, 13, 14, 16 teams, what would happen? How would you leverage it? And we are being told by all of them that what they can do. Now, you'd be able to, you've got to sponsor the day at X dollars, that will be X times 2, because they're part of a larger competition, national exposure. Your match day would not only be what it is now, which of course is a major part. The lower down the pecking order you go in competitions around the world, the higher the proportion of the match day in terms of revenue, which is what we see with COVID, by the way. So that obviously the major leagues can continue with broadcasting. The smaller leagues depend on match day, and they struggle to continue with no supporters. So you'd have your match day revenue. Your match day would increase, more ticket sales, greater match day events. You'd have sponsors hosting events on match day. You've got merchandising, and of course you've got. We're expecting to have streaming of our games through streaming services, so that we're expecting those to at least break even. We're not allowing for more to start with, but what the sponsors can do with that national exposure that each club would have is substantial. So our clubs are very confident that they can bridge the gap between their present expenditure, putting out their present first teams, to what further they will need to do to meet the national costs that they will have to incur if they're playing in a national competition. So that's why we're very careful to make sure that where we start is responsible and viable, and we're confident we can start and launch, and then we'll go from there. And that's the aim. We don't want to set it at a level that perhaps is a bit too ambitious, and we fail. We've waited so long. Let's get it right. That's our thing. Let's not worry about a major, bells and whistles start. Let's do the best we can. But let's also not go below what we can do. That's critical. That's where we started the conversation. We want to do the best we can.
Yeah, I like that idea of having quality right from the outset and having certain standards. Craig, you're going to.
No, it has to be, Tonci. We have to have the quality from the outset. We can't not have that. It's the national second division, the championship, whatever it's going to be called. We have to have the best teams playing at the best level at every time. Otherwise, we go back to the conversations we've had for 18 months about the best players not being able to play against the best players. And then we're not going to develop, and the best players are not going to get the opportunity to play. We've already said tonight that some of the best players in junior MPL are not playing at MPL clubs. Yep. They're playing at community clubs. So it's really important that the AAFC, the Football Federation, get it right from the outset. I'm sure they will. It's something that every football lover in Australia want to see, and let's hope that we can get it pretty quickly without rushing it, and make sure that it's right when it's set up. Just a question from me, and Arthur Clusis has asked the question: will the initial selection have geographical emphasis primarily on economic capacity?
Sorry, so what was that? I missed
I have no idea. So will the initial selection have a geographical emphasis?
So look, it's actually a good question, and it's one that we've considered carefully in our report, and it's one of those ones which it cuts across this, the financial issue. It cuts across tapping every player around the country, the youth players. It's a very complicated way to. It's a complicated thing when you consider all the considerations. So that you said before, Craig, that you want the best teams. Well, the best teams are sort of in the best centres, generally speaking, because that's where people congregate, the populations, the players. Yeah. At the same time, if you just make it about that, are we going to have a Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane competition? Then what happens to Tassie, Canberra, Adelaide, WA? So we've worked on the basis that we want to set the level where our clubs have told us nationally we wouldn't be excluding areas. We don't want to exclude areas because we have favoured in a particular way. The modelling favours certain clubs. We don't want to end up necessarily that the first 12 were Melbourne and Sydney. We're conscious of setting the level where it can be met by ambitious clubs from around the country without specifying it must have X geographical region or Y, because that you get into that hands from above type controlling type governance that we think has actually been a bit of a problem for our football in this country, where it's been directed from above rather than let it find its level. So we want to find a level, but set the parameters at a level where it, provided clubs meet the criteria, and we set the criteria at a level where they can meet them from around the country, we'll have a broad-based competition, so that our players, you're from Queensland, you're not travelling to Melbourne to get a game at the second division. You can find somewhere relatively local. Australia's not that big to be too local, but relatively local, so that young people aren't all leaving their homes to go get games for the bigger clubs.
Could it be split then? So could the possibility be there of a split division? So we have a north-south divide, whatever. Because I've just done a bit of a calculation there for teams from Perth that come into Melbourne. Let's just say it's $500 return flight. You've got 22 players with officials that probably be more than that. You're talking, 12, 13,000 per game, which is potentially a lot of money. So is there, unfortunately for teams like Perth, you're in the middle. I used to call it Greece when I came here, because it's that far. It's 4 hours on a plane. So it's
got good beaches too.
Sorry?
Got good beaches too.
Spoken like a true Greek. Is there a possibility of a split and then coming into a Champions League effect then at the end of the season? Is that a possibility, Nick?
Craig, look, it's possible. The question, it brings us back again to what's best. So we've considered costs, and we, for a team, if Perth were to apply, a Perth team or a couple of teams were to apply, were to meet the criteria, were to be selected, then of course you'd put them at a great disadvantage if they're paying for their flights and every second week to come out of there. So we're looking at having some sort of centralised fund to at least to manage that reasonably, to allow a team like that to come in. But the flip side of having a regional comp in a small place like Australia with a small population is then you defeat your first point, which was to get the best against the best playing, which is not only clubs, Craig, but it's also the bigger matches, which will bring the bigger revenues, which will get us back to those match day receipts that we were talking about, etc. So if you took Melbourne and Sydney into different competitions, you've lost that. So you're starting to get into the sorts of thinking that we've had to do for the last 6 months in preparing our report. And there's no absolute right answer here. I mean, you can argue it uphill, down dale. That's why we're saying you come to the best answer you can and start. Because if we're going to sit here and talk about the ideal answer rather than the best available answer, we'll be talking forever. And there will be two other blokes on the radio with heads like yours and a bloke with a head like mine here in 10 years from now having the same discussion. Yeah. So we want to start, because we won't start meeting every single box ticked perfectly. Just can't happen. Yeah. So that's what we've identified, but it doesn't mean we can't start because we can't tick every box. Yeah. That's the issue.
We're speaking to Nick Galatas, the chairman of the AAFC, the Association of Australian Football Clubs. Nick, thank you very much for joining us on here. I guess the last question, we're going to wrap it up, and it is a discussion that can certainly go on. But where are we at now? As in, how realistic can we expect? Well, probably this year, unlikely, but maybe in 2022. And is it a possibility that what James is suggesting, like having some sort of an NPL playoff system, could that be the forerunner to the proper NSD, and having it maybe at the end of this year, for example, as a mini-style tournament? Where are we at? What can we expect?
So a couple of questions. A long question and a couple of questions there, Tonci. But if I can start with the first one, if it were to be a model like ours, obviously I can speak about that because we've modelled that. We haven't modelled what James has proposed in great detail, although we've covered it. We would say that a model like ours, if we worked with FA from now to introduce it, and it were to align with an A-League competition, as again I think as Football Australia has put out its calendar, they want to align the game, which is great, and they want to have one calendar for all matches and play everybody at the same time, assuming it's a winter type season, the A-League, and it's an assumption. We would be ready, or even if it's a summer one, we'd be ready to start and align with the season after next. So if the A-League season now finishes in June, I don't know when the next one's going to start. I don't know if anyone does, but it'll be another season after the present one. The one after that, we'd be ready to align with it. So the way we'd look at it is we'd finish up the modelling. We would then put out an expression of interest. And when I say we, it'll be, a Football Australia-led process. Clubs would be selected. And then you'd be in a process where you'd give them a run-in, maybe about 12 months, to start the season, to get ready, to get organised, meet the new criteria, ensure that everything's in order. There's things like player contracts to, standardise, stuff like that to prepare. There's all sorts of things. You'd have your year and then you'd start. So that would be if it were our competition, as we've proposed it. As to whether or not you can start an end-of-season competition earlier, well, you probably could, because it's a lower level type competition proposed.
Yeah.
So, yes, you could start that earlier. We've sort of got a finals comp now. I think James is proposing something more involved than that, but I imagine that could start earlier. Could it be a forerunner? It could be, who knows? But from our perspective, again, we just want to start with the best possible. We don't want to start out one road and then change again. It's been so long that we'd want to start with what we're saying. And at least, given that even James is saying it's philosophically preferable, let's at least work on excluding that and say, why can't we have that before we jump into something else? Yeah. So that's where we are at the moment. We're thinking we've got, we can demonstrate the viability of what we propose. And if we do, we think we can start the season after next in terms of the A-League calendar. That's the timing that we envisage.
Fantastic. Well, Nick, I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. I think we've talked too long now, and we really appreciate you coming on. What we would like to do is later on in the season, get you back on, see where things are progressing, get you back on. Hopefully, we'll have the phone lines up and running as well by then, and we can get some of our listeners phoning in. But really appreciate your time tonight. It's a great opportunity. Really exciting to see that it's going somewhere now. You were right about James. He's done a lot of good in a short space of time at Football Federation. So we have to give a lot of credit to what he's doing there. And I think the fact that it's a step ahead. He's unbundled everything. The AAFC have their own chairman, and they're looking at. I think it's going to be a fantastic and exciting 12 months for football in Australia.
And Craig, if I can very briefly, I want to emphasise that point, because there's been a bit of take the opportunity to emphasise the point that there's been some impatience out there, and because we've put out the report and it's been well received, and we're very gratified about that. And everyone looks at it and says, well, why can't we kick it off? Well, they're not the governing body. I would, if you're the CEO, you've got a bit to worry about, and we don't have any expectation that someone will pick it up and say, yeah, here it is, let's go. So we're fully aware as an organisation, and we're a Congress member of Football Australia as well, and we're fully aware that someone like James has come in new, replaced a CEO who's been there for a number of years, and David Gallop. He's taken there's a new board. He's got a lot of things to implement, and there's been a lot of things to do. So we understand that, and we're very keen to convey that we're happy to work together and to get this right. And we're not saying, why haven't you started it now? I mean, there's been a lot of work to do, and we know what that work has been. It's been public, and James goes out there and regularly puts out a little video where says what he's doing. And I think from our perspective, these are the next steps now. So I just want to make that clear to your listeners and everyone that it's not about impatience; it's about getting it right.
Yeah, it's not a marathon; it's a sprint. It's a long, long time. Australia's been 20 years without one, so right. another 2 seasons is not going to go amiss. But we have to get it right now for the future of football in the country. So,
if there's goodwill and we're all working in the one direction, I think we'll make this happen.
On that note, we're going to let you go. But before we do, Nick, the comment of the night so far, Maxi Santich, second division in 2023, only 5 more lockdowns to go. Thank you, Maxi, for bringing a smile to our face. And thank you, Nick, for joining us tonight. We certainly hope that 2021 is not going to be as tumultuous as 2020, but we look forward to hearing more great stuff happening from the AAFC and indeed the National Second Division.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Nick.
Good night.
That was Nick Galatas from the Association of Australian Football Clubs. Very interesting conversation. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to wind it up here on the Football Out West show.
Finance, Point Cook's professional and trusted mortgage broker. Using the latest technology powered by Australian Finance Group, their lender panel has over 30 institutions, including the major banks. Andreas, the director at Guzman Finance, is an ethical and experienced mortgage broker and has helped hundreds of customers navigate the competitive and ever-changing mortgage landscape to find the right loan for them. The company's values are grounded in the principles of integrity and reliability. For you, this means ethical, responsible lending from a family business you can trust. Whether you're in the market for your first home, refinancing, renovating, or buying an investment property, they have access to hundreds of loans from a host of Australia's leading lenders. Guzman Finance will do the hard work for you to make sure you get the right loan for your circumstances. They manage the process from start to finish. Contact Andreas on 0425 82655, website ads.smart.com.au.
Welcome back to the Football Outwear Show, episode 47, season 3, episode 1. And Craig, I really don't know what's with our audio when it comes to all of our adverts, and they've been slickly produced, absolutely professionally produced, and everything. And real apologies to our fantastic sponsors, Guzman Finance, George Cross Football Club, and the other ones as well, Prestige.
Principal Signs, Hands for Hire.
Hands for Hire. We really apologise because they're absolutely fantastic ads tonight, but unfortunately for whatever reason, and we'll get on top of that before next Friday night. But lockdown or no lockdown, we'll be back next Friday night. So we look forward to that. And mate, great show tonight. I'm sure the punters out there appreciated it. And in weeks to come, this will be a lead into the weekend's weekend's action. So we really look forward to talking about the on-field action.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. So that's the whole idea of coming to a Friday night, so we can get the coaches and supporters of the local teams getting involved and coming on for interviews prior to the games on the Friday. But it was a great kickoff. Nick was very open there, and it'd be really exciting to get him back on later on in the season. Comments on the debate was far better than I thought it was, and I think certainly we're gonna link back to that. Maybe even next week we go back to it and finish off the debate on that, because it's really raised some really great points from our listeners. So great show, Tonci. What you up to this weekend? Got much on?
Lockdown tonight, make the most of it. Going to hit the gym, going to do a 10 to midnight session. Going to go out with my little girl for a something to eat, I think. The wife's with the little boy tonight, so we're trying to make the most of it. What about yourself, mate?
No, I'm off for a beer now myself, and then I've got Morgan's got a couple of his mates over. Big shout out to the boys who are back in the back garden behaving themselves. And then it's lockdown till Wednesday.
Till Wednesday night.
This time next week, hopefully things will be a little bit better here in Victoria, and we can hopefully preview next weekend's games and start to get back to some kind of normality again.
And the final whistle sounds as 90 minutes is up. Good night, folks, and thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for your